All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. If I may have your attention for a brief moment, please. Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We'd like to welcome you here to the Dirty Dog Jazz Cafe. We have a few birthday acknowledgments we'd like to give out before we start everything off tonight. And the first one is going out to Denise. Where you at, Denise? Where's Denise at? Everybody say happy birthday to Denise. Where you at, Joyce? Joyce in the house? There she is. Everybody say happy birthday to Joyce. Mr. Finnis. Where you at, Finnis? Where? Everybody say happy birthday to Mr. Finnis. All right. Any more birthdays in the house tonight? All right, ladies and gentlemen, I did my job. I'm going to turn this microphone over to the gentleman in charge. Just a minute.
I can't believe he handed it to me because I'm not the gentleman in charge. In fact, some would say, my wife included, I'm not always a gentleman, but I'll do my very, very best. I'm Chris Collins, President and Artistic Director of the Detroit Jazz Fest Foundation. Welcome here to the Dirty Dog. A very special thanks, this long-term annual collaboration between Detroit Jazz Fest Foundation, the Dirty Dog Jazz Cafe, of course, Gretchen Valade is where we worked that out at a table one day. We were going to do this. And our incredible sponsors tonight, which we're going to talk to a representative in just a minute, and I'll tell you a little bit more about them. But we're here for the 2025 Detroit Jazz Fest Foundation Collegiate Combo Competition presented by Central Michigan University. Let's hear it for CMU. And we have 4 finalists tonight from this is a national competition from across the country. They send in stuff. We have various judges who listen to the music and make final decisions. And tonight, not only do we have folks in the audience, but also on our live stream. We'll take it all into account. There'll be 2 bands in the first set, half hour each, 2 bands in the second set. And I'm telling you, this is some serious music going on by some great aspiring players. And so I know you'll dig it. At the end of the night for this competition, we do gather the bands together, and once I tabulate everything from all the folks I have listening, we will announce the winner at the very end of the evening. And the winner not only gets a $2,000 award and a gig at the Detroit Jazz Festival this year, but also they're playing as a professional band tomorrow night here at the Dirty Dog Jazz Cafe. So these bands deserve your attention. I know you'll give it to them, but you'll have an opportunity to hear their artistry on and again. For those of you who've attended these things in the past, you'll know that many of the artists that have come through this program over the last 13 years have made a significant mark in their professional career. So you could be sitting at the beginning of history. We don't know who it's going to be, but I think their music will tell us that. So just before we get started, I think it's so important to celebrate all of our sponsors and donors, because without the philanthropy, these events don't happen. Our signature jazz festival will not happen. These are not ticketed events for the signature event, nor are they something where there's just some entity out there in outer space coming up with $5 million a year. And it's $5 million a year to run the Detroit Jazz Fest Foundation. And by the way, 85 cents of every dollar goes to programming. So it's not we're not paying our administrators over the top here. It's a lot of love for the music and keeping it real and keeping arts and culture relevant in all generations of our global community. So it's so important that when organizations step up, and especially Central Michigan, that you know is known nationally, they're not their main campus is not right here in Detroit, but these folks are committed to so many different communities throughout Michigan. They have their satellite locations, and they have investment in the youth and in the communities, not just as a university looking for students, but really caring about the citizenry and the surrounding communities that make their university so very, very special and diverse. So I want you to hear from the representative who speaks on their behalf. This organization, CMU, has been supporting the Detroit Jazz Fest Foundation for over a decade, and they've been personally sponsoring this event, the Collegiate Combo Competition, for 6 years. And the commitment, I can't even express to you what that means to have that level of reliability probability that we can move forward. It means that future generations will have the opportunity thanks to all of you. So please welcome the band, say a few words, and here's another example of CMU's commitment. She is a very dear friend, but the executive director of Detroit Outreach at CMU. They have an executive director for Detroit Outreach at Central Michigan University, and she's one of the hippest chicks there in the room. Please welcome Miss Rhonda Welsh.
I love my new title as the hippest chick at Central Michigan University. Thank you so much, Chris. As he mentioned, I'm Rhonda Welsh, Executive Director for Detroit Outreach at Central Michigan University, and I run the Detroit campus, which is at Woodward and Fort Street across from Campus Martius. And we are so pleased and so proud to be sponsors of the Collegiate Combo competition again this year. It is one of my great personal pleasures to be here every year. If you read the news, you know that things are a little interested in the world right now, but the arts, especially music, is such a bomb, and we know that it soothes the soul. So we are just so pleased and so proud to be supporters, and thank you to each of you who are here who support music and music education here in this community. It's noble work, and at Central Michigan University, we're just enthusiastic to join you in that noble work. So I'm not going to keep you from this music any longer. Thank you so much, and thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Rhonda. Love you to death. All right, let's get to the music. These cats have been patient enough. I hate to have them standing up here. We want to hear what they got going on. This is the first year at the competition. We've had an ensemble from Western Michigan University, and again, it's an example of all the great universities we have here in Michigan and around the country and the dedication they have to arts and culture, and these cats are going to show you what that's all about. So we're so happy to have you guys here. It's great. It's really great. So from Western Michigan University, the Western Michigan University Advanced Jazz Ensemble. The student leader is Jacob DeWitt. There he is, right behind me, who was Wayne State students for a while, and yeah, making the rounds. He's off to University of Southern California. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know where you're going next. But please welcome this marvelous ensemble, great arrangements and great players, the Western Michigan University Advanced Jazz Ensemble.
Testing. All right, sweet. Hi, everybody. We're the Western Michigan University Advanced Jazz Ensemble. We are very humbled and lucky and grateful to be here tonight competing with some other amazing groups from some amazing schools in this competition for a really cool opportunity. A little bit about our group. We've spent the past year composing and arranging all of our own original music and original arrangements. So everything that you're hearing is from the hearts and minds of everybody that's on stage right now. The tune you just heard was by our band leader and saxophone player, Jacob DeWitt. It was called Beholden. You'll hear tunes from myself, from our trumpet player, Dalen, and from our drummer, Caden Anderson. And these are just 4 of the 9 compositions and arrangements that we were able to put together and record and perform for everybody throughout this year. So I hope you enjoy the rest of the set. Thank you so much. One, two, three, four.
One, two, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Go. And synchronized bowing. What about that? I'm telling you what, man. And you should see him dance. Guys, congratulations. Sounds beautiful, man. Beautiful. Yeah, keep it up. Let's hear it for him one more time. Western Michigan University Advanced Jazz Ensemble. Leader Jacob DeWitt. Yeah, man. Yeah, guys. And also, this is a testament. Well, I should preface it by saying that, there was a time not too long ago in my lifetime where jazz studies at a university as a serious area of research was not accepted, much like the saxophone was not accepted into the orchestra when it was invented. But the universities have become really the hotbed of some of the greatest players that you hear in the world today, and there's a great reason for that. And one of those reasons is the incredible mentors. They're all very often themselves great artists, great musicians that choose to pass on the language to the next generation. They choose to do it in the formal setting of academia. That's why having a presenting sponsor like Central Michigan University is so incredible, because it reflects that commitment to the arts, but also bringing artists to bear and bringing the incredible history and wisdom of this creative and challenging music to new generations. And as an example of that, Andrew Rathburn, who's a wonderful player, wonderful composer, and an incredible mentor. He's the director of jazz studies at Western Michigan University. He came out tonight to make sure he supported his cats and to support them along the way. If you've never heard Andrew play, you have to. I believe he'll be at the Jazz Festival this year, and he's a very special cat. Please give it up for Andrew Rathburn, director of jazz studies at Western Michigan University. Bravo. As we set up for the next band, you can bring him on up while I'm doing. Yeah. Very good, very good. Yeah, come on up, guys. And we'll introduce them in just a moment. As they get set up, a quick word. This entire competition came about because we wanted to find a way to celebrate those great aspiring artists that are also able to compete and be successful in the challenging environment of academia. And as I said, there was a time when on one side of the fence, academia didn't see jazz as a serious study, and those of us who are in it know that jazz is a very serious study in all things, and it deserves to be here. But on the other side of the fence is the street school of jazz, which is essential to understanding the language and the history of this music. You can't have one without the other, and that's why people like Andrew at schools make such a difference, because they bring to bear that street history. But the problem was the street was pulling one way, saying, well, we don't want, this music doesn't belong in academia, and on the other side you had academia and the conservatives saying that it wasn't belonging in a college degree setting. So that's been resolved over the years to great extent. And what we want to do at the Detroit Jazz Festival, we've celebrated all kinds through competition, all kinds of different musicians. Just last night we had the youth vocal competition for young singers under 18. It was an incredibly great experience. But how do we celebrate those musicians that can compete in both of those settings, the artistic street school and the academic environment? It takes a lot of discipline, and it takes just a lot of focus. Family support means a great deal, as well as the support of great mentors. And that's where this competition came from. We wanted to bring those artists to bear and let them know we really appreciate the efforts of not only them but their universities and the mentors behind them. This next band coming up is a great example of one of the only rules of this competition, which is that students have to be enrolled in a university program at the time. But they don't all have to be at the same university, which brings together some really interesting diverse groups and allows for cats to collaborate across borders, which those of us from universities know doesn't always happen on the football field, right? But although at Wayne State, I will say, I remember when I was a kid, we got a new basketball coach, and his name was Charlie Parker. And the headline in the paper was, Wayne State's new basketball coach, Charlie Parker lives and dribbles, which I thought was a great line. Only in Detroit. So, are you cats ready? You sure? You're comfortable? I don't want to rush you. You good? So here we go. Let's move on with the 2025 Detroit Jazz Fest Foundation's Collegiate Combo Competition presented by Central Michigan University. One more hand for our Central Michigan folks. Yeah. Woo. Wouldn't happen without you, cats. Thank you for years now. Jeez, it's amazing. So please welcome our second ensemble. They're the last ensemble for this set, and then we're going to make a changeover and hear the other two, and then announce the winners after that. And for those of you on live stream, you will hear the winner announced. So stay tuned. Don't lose your seat there. So please welcome the bandstand. This is a mix of students from, if I understand it, Michigan State University, University of Michigan. I know some of you. Yeah, great. And collaborating, I love it. And they call themselves the Five, correct? Yes, sir. And is that because there's 5 of you? Oh, you don't do. I thought maybe you did all the tunes in odd meters or something like that. No. So here we go. Let me get out of the way. Some wonderful music from students from University of Michigan and Michigan State University, the Five. Please welcome them.
All right, I'm going to talk a little loud. Ladies and gentlemen, we are the Five. Go ahead and give another round of applause. Yeah. Rowan Tucker Meyer on piano. Mr. Shane Karras on the tenor saxophone. Bryn Hilliger on the bass. The one holding it all together, Mr. Carson Kelly. Go ahead and give him a round of applause. My name is Eli Rocklin, and we are the Five. We're going to play another composition. The first one was Take It to the Ozone by the great Freddie Hubbard. That's right. That's right. We then followed up with Joy Spring, a Clifford Brown composition that I arranged. Now we're going to follow up with an original composition of mine. It's a ballad entitled You Remain. Take it away, Rowan. Carson Kelly on the drums. Take out the broken mic the second time. I think there is. Is there a switch? Yeah. The legacy. I'm talking to this one. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, we are the Five. Thank you for coming out and listening. We really appreciate all the support. Once again, Mr. Shane Karras on the tenor saxophone. Absolutely incredible. We'll save you for last. Mr. Carson Kelly on the drums. Let's give him a round. Bryn Hilliker on the bass. Mr. Rowan Tucker Meyer. Now, here's the note. I have never in my time at MSU seen a cat play piano like this cat plays piano. Can we please give a round of applause to this cat? Truly, man, absolutely incredible. Truly. So we're going to go ahead and close it out for you guys with another original composition of mine entitled New Light. The last tune that we just performed is a tune called The Night Has 1,000 Eyes. Absolutely incredible composition, but we're going to close out with my original composition, New Light. I hope you guys enjoy. Carrots, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, we are the Five. Thank you very much. That was New Light. Have a good night, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, killing you guys. The Five. Beautiful job, cats. Thank you so much. Well, that signifies the end of the first half of our finalists here in the Detroit Jazz Festival Foundation's Collegiate Combo Competition presented by Central Michigan University. How do you think of it so far? Cats are playing, right? Cats are playing. Sure. And they can only be here if they're perfect A students, so nothing else. We are going to take a short pause, and as you know, a second seating is upon us. But you can watch the rest of the show on a live stream at the Dirty Dog Jazz Cafe YouTube, and we'll be replaying all of these sets as part of our regular streaming series on Friday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at Detroit Jazz Fest YouTube channels, Facebook channels, etc., etc. So we'll be back in just a little bit. Once again, one last thanks to our incredible sponsors this evening and the executive director of Detroit Affairs from Central Michigan University. And Central Michigan University, give it up. Years of support for all these young great cats. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you, thank you. Have a great evening, everyone. Thanks a lot. Ciao.